So, hello, folks. Gosh, Connor, it seems like forever since I saw you. Like a whole 2 minutes.
We're not supposed to say that. No, this is next week, guys.
Oh, yeah, it's next week. I haven't seen Connor in a week. How you doing, Connor? How was that week?
It was awesome.
It went by quickly.
It went by quickly.
Absolutely. So this is Storytelling on the Plains, a podcast about the people, history, and places of western Nebraska that Connor and I find interesting.
Yes.
And you know what? I would bet even if someone emailed me and said, hey, have you heard of this? No. And I would probably research it and be like, whoa, that's cool. And then we would share it anyway. So
hint, hint, wink, wink.
Yeah.
Send us some ideas.
Yeah. Because we do have that original list that we made that has it like 100.
That's right.
It's like 150 things on that list. But when I was researching what we're going to discuss today, I learned about a new battle, and there's a historical marker, out in that area. And so I've got a whole bunch of notes I just got to start writing. So there you go, folks. Just send us ideas. We'll add it to our list, and then we'll do this till the day we die. Or till Connor gets bored, and then I'll cry, and I'll do it all by myself till I die.
Oh, no, don't. I'm not bored yet. It's too much fun.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of fun.
It's a lot. I enjoy doing this. I enjoy hearing the stories. I need to play more part on the research. I'll admit that, but I do like research.
You're also far busier with work than I am, so that's not a big deal to me at all. You show up, put your butt in the cheap $25 chair, and we're good. And you know what? I'm gonna have to buy more cheap $25 chairs if we start having guests, because I've spoken to Jerry Lucas, and he said he would love to come and talk. Maybe I'll get him to pretend that he's Frenchie the fur trapper. That's what he did at the Scottsbluff National Monument for about a decade, I think, 11 years.
Wow.
And he retired last year.
Very cool.
And he's a really great, interesting guy. Maybe be able to get him to talk about some of his life. We'll see. And then I talked to my friend Sandra, who moved to this area because she was doing a massive amount of research on the Japanese here. Mm-hmm. And I said, I would love you to just come in,
that's right.
talk
to her, yeah.
And I go, Connor and I will just sit there and say nothing, and you can just ramble on for 2 or 3 hours. We're okay with that. Because she does know a massive amount about how they got here, why they came, so much stuff. And then I have another friend that helped preserve the Japanese Hall.
Yeah, which recently opened, I believe.
Yeah, and so I need to send Vicky an email and say, hey, next time you're out, would you like to come sit in my basement and chat about it? And both of them have a wealth of knowledge that I would love to just do like a multiple parter on that, because Vicky went through a lot to get that place preserved, to get it moved so that the building wasn't demolished. And so that'll be a future episode, because I'm pretty sure Vicky will say yes, and Sandra already has said yes. It's just a matter of getting the time here. Yeah.
Yep.
So you know what'll happen is we'll arrange for it, and then that day you'll get run over by a truck, and you'll be like, "Oh man, I can't make it." And I'll be like, "Too bad, man. I'm still doing it."
That's okay. And he get it done. You can insert me. I can insert myself.
We'll just come back later, and I'll be like, okay, here, say this.
Right.
So today we're going to talk about Narcissa Prentiss Whitman.
Oh, now she has a middle name.
Oh, that's her maiden name.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I didn't hear that in our last.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I said it in the last episode.
So Narcissa Prentiss Whitman. So Prentiss is her maiden name.
Yeah.
Whitman was the married name.
Yes.
Okay.
So historian and biographer Clifford M. Drury calls her one of the best known and most loved characters in the history of the Pacific Northwest. Y'all can be the judge of that, but we're mostly going to talk about Narcissa on the trail as she came through our neck of the woods. She has her marker here, so I want to know why she got a marker here. We will because she is on the trail, even though it's not the trail yet, and she came through our land, It's not our land. She came through, yeah.
None of that. None of that our land stuff.
She came through Nebraska. Words fail me sometimes. And she made it all the way out there. And I have to touch on that so that we can tell her complete story. But there was quite a bit in her journals that I just want to read because I thought it was super fascinating. So anyway, Narcissa was born in Prattsburg, New York in 1808. Her family was big on faith and education, which is not a lot of people are like that today. They're either big on faith or education. Her family was big on you need both.
Yeah.
So she attended the local Presbyterian church where she became a member in 1819 when she was 11 years old.
Willing or no.
Yeah.
I like that she became a member at 11. I'm like, did she become a member or did she get drug in by the wrists?
Yeah. She did note, and I don't have it in my script, but she did note in her diary that she committed to the church when she was 11 and thought about being a missionary, but it was just kind of like, yeah, that sounds like a good thing to do. It wasn't until later.
What 11-year-old doesn't think about that when they first get into this church group? Because they always talk about missionary work. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, yeah, I want to be 11-year-old mission.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's 1819, so what else are you going to do? I don't know.
You talk about the weather, you talk about the corn, or you talk about God.
Yep, there you go. And if she was in upstate New York, she might have been talking apples as well.
Yes.
Man, I miss no, it's not Harvard because I'm going back to New York. Oh, when this episode airs, I may be back from New York.
Oh.
Yeah, I will be back.
Get some apples.
I'm not sure if it's hard because I've been gone long enough. I'm not sure if they're end of August is harvest time yet or not. I know September and October, apples are everywhere.
Oh, yeah. Just like up in Minnesota. Yeah.
Anyway, I digress. So everyone at church said that she sang beautifully. I don't know. I wasn't there. But it was documented enough that a lot of people thought she sang well.
Sure.
In 1824, when she was 16, she decided she wanted to be a missionary after having attended a religious revival. I don't know if you've ever been to a revival or seen how they are.
Yeah, I've been to a few.
Yeah, you can get really whipped up into a frenzy and want to do stuff.
Yes.
They were probably even bigger then than they are now because nobody has revivals packing up tents and going around the country doing revivals anymore.
I don't quite know that's true. What do you call the Horizon Music Festival? That's coming
I don't know. I haven't gone.
That seems like that they call it a revival.
Really?
They do. They call that a revival nowadays. So like that.
Okay.
For those who don't know, the Horizon Music Festival is a Christian organized group, and of course Christian bands come, but it's mostly for proselytizing. It's mostly to get you into God and get you into all that. Obviously, Irene and I don't care about that, but it is considered what most people call modern day revivals.
Okay.
I think that's the word for it, modern day revival. You'll hear it on the radio.
I don't listen to the radio. I listen to my own music and my own podcasts.
Yeah, where I work, that radio's playing all day.
Oh, okay.
I hear about that like every few hours.
Oh, see, if I hear about anything, that's just Connor trying to knock everything off the desk. If I hear anything too much, enough, I'm done. I don't want it anymore.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if I wanted it to begin with. Once I hear it 16 times in a day, no, I don't want to hear that ever again.
Oh, and it's bad because, like 20 after 12 is the national anthem. It's on the dot. So if it's 20 after 12, I was like, oh, national anthem's coming on because it's always played 20 after 12 on the radio station. I don't know. Why not 12? Why 20 after 12? I never got that.
Well, why at all?
I don't know. But if you go, they said they'll play, and then they'll always play different people. So it'll be the national anthem like you would hear at a baseball game. Some people are actually, they ask you to send recordings of it. So every day it's someone differently speaking, and they have beautiful singers. Sometimes it's just in violin, sometimes it's just in piano. But yeah, 12 after 20. Mark, if you all listen to the radio, I don't know what station it is. It's that pop station here.
Okay, yeah.
It's not country, but
Yeah, I don't even know the stations anymore
I don't either.
because I get my audiobooks and because I have an old car that still isn't connected to anything. I put my my audiobooks on a USB drive, stick it in my car, and that's what I listen to in my car.
Yeah.
I just finished listening to a book called The Color of Law. Really, really good, but I was glad I was listening to it in 5 to 10 minute chunks, because that's what it's about, is what we did to African Americans through the law since the Civil War.
Sure.
And yeah, I could take 5 to 10 minute chunks.
Now we're really digressing.
Yeah, we're way off track now, but there you go. Anyway, we're gonna go
a little far away from New York.
We're gonna go back in time to when Narcissa Whitman did all of this on horseback through Nebraska. So, according to the Narcissa Prentiss house, which is her home, and they've got all her letters, historical documents, all that stuff. On their website, they wrote that having attended 2 sessions at the Franklin Academy and Collegiate Institute in Prattsburg after it opened its doors to women, Narcissa is also said to have attended Emma Willard's Female Seminary in Troy, New York, and Troy, New York is just outside of Albany. And I'm not exactly sure where Prattsburg is, but it's not too far from Albany, although there's no records available from that period. But other documents, it's the secondary documents that, she went there. So for me, it would be, I write in my journal that I graduated from UNL, but they didn't keep the records at UNL. So my document might be a primary. It'd be a secondary resource because it's me saying I went there, but they don't have a way to prove that I went there. Sure. But they have enough secondary documents that they're pretty sure she went. And I thought that was cool, was that this place opened its doors to women, and then she was also able to go to a female seminary.
Yeah.
So I think maybe by 16, she definitely wanted to be a missionary. You're not going to go to seminary if you aren't thinking of spreading the word of God.
That's very true.
Yeah. So she did teach school in Prattsburg and kindergarten in Bath, New York. So I don't know what she taught in Prattsburg, but it was school, probably elementary school. But when she was teaching in Bath, New York, it was specifically kindergarten.
Gotcha.
Her family moved in 1835 to what is now Belmont, New York. I forgot the name that it was called then. But anyway, go look on a map for Belmont, New York. That's where she moved to. And soon after, she attended that talk about the need for missionaries in the western part of the continent. So Narcissa wanted to go and ask if unmarried women could go. She talked to the dude that did the little revival, and he said he would find out, and they refused. They were just like, no, you're a woman, no. You're not going.
Jeez.
So that dude, his name was Samuel Parker, he told Dr. Marcus Whitman about Narcissa and was like, this is her dream. She wants to be a missionary, but she can't go as a single woman. So they get introduced to each other. A month later, in February 1835, so she attends this revival, and a month later she meets Marcus, and they were married the following February. And then the next day, they started on the trip.
Okay.
Yeah. So she was, I'm not going to judge, but
yeah, was this a marriage of opportunity?
Yeah, okay. She wanted to be a missionary in the worst way, and that was her way to do it. So I don't know. You
never know about missionaries' positions on some things. I don't know if that's inappropriate. That might have been. You might have to cut that one out.
No, because that means I got to go scan in and find the exact marker spot. Because on this machine that we use, there is a way that I can flag spots, but then I don't know how to find them, so I don't care. I literally listen to every episode over, and because I do that and thing, and I'll cut out as many as I can.
Yeah.
And then sometimes, so if you notice that I say it more toward the end of an episode, it's because our episode's like an hour and a half long, and I'm just tired of cutting those out. Whatever, man, they're staying in. People can just deal with it.
An editor.
We need a proper editor, not Irene going, "Oh, is this how you do it?" So, sorry, now I'm very well aware of me doing the ums and the so's. The Whitmans joined a group consisting of Reverend Henry Spalding and his new bride, Eliza, as well as William Gray. Narcissa and Eliza were the first two documented white women to travel on the trails across the entire continent. No one believed until then a woman could do such a thing. And I'm not saying a woman didn't do such a thing, but
sure,
they're the first documented ones, and in general, people are like, yeah, women can't do that.
Yeah, unless, forget about Sacagawea, but, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. It's not like she was important. What did she do?
Nothing. So from New York, the group traveled west to the Oto Indian Agency in present-day Bellevue, Nebraska, where they joined Thomas Fitzpatrick's American Fur Company caravan. Narcissa made a stop at the Ancient Bluffs ruins, as that we talked about in our last episode, before continuing on her journey west. So one thing you have to remember is that much of their journey was not in the United States. You're talking 1836. They traveled through many territories belonging to a variety of Indian tribes. Narcissa was among several people sent by the American Board of Commissioners for Foreign Missions, ABCFM, which is a lot easier to say, to the Oregon country to set up missions among the many native nations there. And the Spaldings were supposed to be sent to the Osage Nation, but were transferred to the Oregon Party. So once you get, past the Appalachians in the 1830s? Very much when you're in Nebraska, it's still Nebraska territory, Oregon territory. You're not technically in the U.S. anymore.
Well, did it belong to the U.S. or was it still belong to the Spanish? The
southern part of the country was still part of Spain, and Oregon territory, 1836. I think the Brits still had that. We had already bought the Louisiana Purchase.
We'd already bought and we'd already started to expand. So, but I thought that only went so far, and then we had to make another negotiation with Spain to get Texas and Nevada, Arizona, up into California.
But up in Oregon and Washington and part of Idaho was Oregon territory, and I think the Brits still had that, but I'm not 100% sure. We still had to negotiate for that too. So it's been documented that the ABCFM wanted people who could take care of themselves, but this character trait led to many fights within this group of who was supposed to be in charge. So when they did eventually get out west, they created 5 missionary stations in Washington and Idaho, because it was really the only way to stop the infighting. It was like, no, Connor, I'm in charge. And no, Irene, I'm in charge. And so they eventually were like, okay, we're going to do our own thing in different...
We'll just go our separate ways.
Yeah. And so they also thought that would be a good way to reach more Native Americans and thus more converts if they were spread out. But this ridiculous infighting also caused them to stretch their resources, because they're still only getting resources for one group, and they split themselves up. So, their own fault. But anyway, let's get back to the trail and hear Narcissa's words and what it was like, because I found some of her letters interesting. Some are letters, some are her diary entries. And I will provide links, if you're a Patreon supporter, to where I found all this information, because a lot of it is online, and it's really, really interesting. So at the Platte River, just above the Forks, on June 3rd, 1836. Dear Sister Harriet and Brother Edward. And that's not religion, like everybody's your brother and sister. This is her actual brother and sister. Yeah. Friday Eve, 6 o'clock. We have just encamped for the night near the bluffs over against the river. The bottoms are soft, wet plain, and we were obliged to leave the river yesterday for the bluffs. The face of the country yesterday afternoon and today has been rolling sand bluffs, mostly barren, quite unlike what our eyes have been satiated with for weeks. No timber nearer than the Platte, and the water tonight is very bad, got from a small ravine. We usually have good water precious to this. I think she might be in our area at this point in time.
Yeah, just above the Forks. What would be the Forks?
I think the Forks is probably where the river forks to the North Platte and the South Platte River.
Which is as you're heading towards Colorado?
No, out here. So
you're out the other way.
You're still not out here yet.
Okay.
Yeah, you're closer to North Platte at that point in time.
Okay, gotcha.
So she might be there. And they did travel by a variety of transportation, but once they got out here, it's all pretty much horses and walking and wagons. Our fuel for cooking since we left timber, no timber except on rivers, has been dried buffalo dung.
Buffalo chips.
Yeah. We now find plenty of it, and it answers a very good purpose, similar to the kind of coal used in Pennsylvania. I suppose now Harriet will make up a face at this, but if she was here, she would be glad to have her supper cooked at any rate in this scarce timber country. So she's definitely coming across the prairie in Nebraska at this point in time. The present time in our journey is a very important one. The hunter brought us buffalo meat yesterday for the first time. Buffalo were seen today, but none have been taken. We have some for supper tonight. Husband is cooking it. No one of the company professes the art but himself. I expect it will be very good. Stop. I have so much to say to the children that I do not know in what part of my story to begin. I have very little time to write. I will first tell you what our company consists of. We are 10 in number, 5 missionaries, 3 Indian boys, and 2 young men employed to assist in packing animals. So I found that interesting because she doesn't say, hey, Marcus is cooking. Husband is cooking. Mm-hmm. I also thought it was interesting how she compared it to the coal they used in Pennsylvania, and that the dung serves the same purpose. No big deal. And that they see buffalo all the time now.
But they're very hard to hunt and capture and kill. They're
Yep.
massive animals. Simply shooting them doesn't always work.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just makes them angry. But yeah, it's really hard to hunt bison.
Yeah. And that she calls the guy Hunter, the hunter.
Hunter. Yeah.
What's his name? That's just me and a respect thing for me. I want to know what your name is. I might not remember your last name, but I'll remember your first name. To me, that's just...
Maybe it was too hard to pronounce.
Yeah, I don't know. Who knows? And maybe it was that William Gray guy. I don't know. I just would have called him by his name, but that's me.
I don't know. That's it. Maybe his name was Seymour Butts, and it's like I'm just going to call you Hunter so people stop giggling.
Yeah. So she also wrote Saturday the 4th, which would be June 4th, 1836. Good morning, H&E. So again, her sister Harriet and brother Edward. I wrote last night till supper. After that, it was dark. I could not see. I told you how many bipeds there was in our company last night. Now for the quadrupeds, which I just absolutely started cracking up laughing when I read that. Right. 14 horses, 6 mules, and 15 head of cattle. We milk 4 cows. We started with 17, but we have killed 1 calf, and the fur company, being out of provision, have taken one of our cows for beef. It is usually pinching times with the company before they reach the buffalo. We have had plenty because we made ample provision at Liberty. I believe that was in Missouri. We purchased a barrel of flour and baked enough to last us, with killing a calf or two until we reached the buffalo. So she's essentially saying here, the fur company, because we're with them, just said, hey, we don't have enough food. We're taking one of your cows and going to eat it. And she's politely ticked off about it because her group made enough accommodations to have enough food till they found buffalo.
Yep.
So it's just neat how you can see her anger in her writing here. She's ticked off. Now you took our cow, so now we have one less. So now we don't have enough provision.
Yep.
So the fur company is large this year. We are really a moving village, nearly 400 animals with ours, mostly mules and 70 men. The fur company have 7 wagons drawn by 6 mules each, heavily loaded, and 1 cart drawn by 2 mules, which carries a lame man, one of the proprietors of the company. We have 2 wagons in our company, Mr. and Mrs. S., who I'm guessing is Spalding. Husband and myself ride in one, Mr. Gray and the baggage in the other. Our Indian boys drive the cows and Doolin the horses. I'm not sure who Doolin is. I didn't do enough research to find out, but he's another.
That young boy that she was talking about.
Well, she said our Indian boys drove the cows and Doolin the horses, so I'm guessing there's another guy there.
Yeah.
Young Miles leads our forward horses, 4 in each team. Now E, who is her brother, if you want to see the camp in motion, look away ahead and see first the pilot and the captain, Fitzpatrick, just before him. Next, the pack animals, all mules, loaded with great packs. Soon after, you will see the wagons, and in the rear, our company. We all cover quite a space. The pack mules always string one after the other, just like Indians. So this I found interesting because that's one thing that a lot of people think when the massive immigrant trail, when there were thousands that went through in a year, they weren't all in single file then. They were spread out. Yeah. But here they are absolutely going single file. And her group's in the back. So that's a difference between, this is 1836, and by the time you get to 1851, 52, they're not all doing single file anymore. Yeah. They do at certain places, like when they pass through Mitchell Pass at the monument, because of the terrain, they have to do single file, but a lot of times they were all just spread out.
Yep.
There are several gentlemen in the company who are going over the mountains for pleasure. Okay, then.
For the pleasure of the mountains, or they're going to go find pleasure on the other side of the mountains?
Yeah, I don't know. Or just, hey, I'm going because I can. I don't know. Captain Stewart, Mr. Lee speaks of him in his journal. He went over when he did and returned. He is an Englishman and Mr. Selam. We had a few of them to tea with us last Monday evening, Captain Fitzpatrick, Stewart, Major Harris, and Selam. So it's not very clear writing here, but you can kind of get the gist of it. There's dudes that are going for the heck of it. The captain is an English dude, and they all had tea together on the trail.
Nice cup of tea.
Yeah. I wish I could describe to you how we live so that you can realize it. Our manner of living is far preferable to any in the States. I never was so contented and happy before, neither have I enjoyed such health for years. In the morning, as soon as the day breaks, the first that we hear is the word, "Arise, arise." Then the mules set up such a noise as you never heard, which puts the whole camp in motion. We encamp in a large ring, baggage and men, tents and wagons on the outside, and all the animals except the cows, which are fastened to pickets within the circle. This arrangement is to accommodate the guard who stand regularly every night and day, also when we are in motion, to protect the animals from the approach of Indians who would steal them. As I said, the mules' noise brings every man on his feet to loose them and turn them out to feed. So right there at the beginning, she's like just traveling on the trail. She thinks it's better than life in the States.
Well, but if you think about it, New York, I mean, grimy, dusty, dirty.
She's from upstate New York.
Still.
Forested.
Well, forested, but I'm sure it got exposed to the New York cities and the New York life. And I'm sure it, compared to there, to out here, where, there's no trees, there's no nothing. Yeah, wide open spaces.
And I'm sure with her going to the female seminary as well, that maybe she was educated about what it is like going to these other countries and places, that it's not like this. And every sense, like the more that I read, I got the sense that this is the kind of life that she loves. And maybe if it had been a different culture where she could have done this single, maybe she would have went there and back, like the explorers, but just different circumstances where she wasn't able to do that. But this is what her dream is. So she probably still has rose-colored glasses on, and maybe not. Maybe she's seeing this stuff and she's like, yeah, man, this is awesome.
Well, I could get the nostalgia. And maybe I'm saying that because I am from here. I was raised here all my life. But so all of this has always been my home and just the way it is. But I also love it out here because it is. It's very open and there's a lot of adventure, hence why we're doing this show. There's a lot of cool stuff that happened out here. Yes. Horrible stuff, but also a lot of really neat stuff. And just being out here and just trying to get from one side of the state to another, just thinking about that on foot or on a horse or on wagon, it's an incredible accomplishment. And that's before you get to Wyoming. And Wyoming's far, far worse.
Yes. So. Oh my gosh, yes. Now, H&E, you must think very hard to have to get up so early after sleeping on the soft ground, when you find it hard work to open your eyes at 7 o'clock. Just think of me every morning at the word arise. We all spring. And then she just stopped writing. While the horses are feeding, we get breakfast in a hurry and eat it. By this time, the words catch up, ring through the camp for moving. We are ready to start, usually at 6, travel till 11, and camp, rest, and feed, and start again about 2, travel until 6 or before. If we come to a good tavern, then encamp for the night. So her brother and sister are getting up at 7 o'clock in the morning, and they're ready to start by 6. So by 6, she's already been up and eating her food and stuff.
When the sun comes up.
Yep. Since we have been in the prairie, we have done all of our cooking. When we left Liberty, we expected to take bread to last us part of the way, but could not get enough to carry us any distance. We found it awkward work to bake out of doors at first, but we have become so accustomed to it now we do it very easily. Something everybody learned when they were going along the trail. Yeah, this is hard to do, and then you do it every day, and it just becomes easy. Yep. Tell Mother I am a very good housekeeper on the prairie. I wish she could just take a peep at us while we are sitting at our meals. Our table is the ground. Our tablecloth is an India rubber cloth used when it rains as a cloak. Our dishes are made of tin basins for teacups, iron spoons and plates, each of us, and several pans for milk and to put our meat in when we wish to set it on the table. And just that vision, they're doing their proper dinner place settings on the ground. Each one carries his own knife in his scabbard, and it is always ready to use. When the table things are spread, after making our own forks or sticks and helping ourselves to chairs, we gather around the table. Husband always provides my seat, and in a way that would laugh to see. Sorry, sometimes I want to fill in words that she didn't actually put. It is the fashion of all this country to imitate the Turks. Messieurs Dunbar and Ali have supped with us, and they do the same. We take a blanket and lay down by the table, and those whose joints will let them follow the fashion. Others take out some of the baggage. I suppose you know that there is no stones in this country, not a stone have I seen of any size on the prairie. So they're eating just like the Turks did then, which you see in ancient Rome as well. You lay down on the ground.
You basically have a picnic.
Yeah.
Having a picnic, guys.
There
That's what
you
it is.
go.
It's a picnic.
For my part, I fix myself as gracefully as I can, sometimes on a blanket, sometimes on a box, just as it is convenient. Let me assure you of this, we relish our food nonetheless for sitting on the ground while eating. We have tea and a plenty of milk, which is a luxury in this country.
Yeah.
Our milk has assisted us very much in making our bread since we have been journeying. While the fur company has felt the want of food, our milk has been of great service to us. But it was considerable work for us to supply 10 persons with bread 3 times a day. We are done using it now. What little flour we have left we shall preserve for thickening our broth, which is excellent. I never saw anything like buffalo meat to satisfy hunger. We do not want anything else with it. I have eaten 3 meals of it, and it relishes well. Supper and breakfast we eat in our tent. We do not pitch it at noon. Have worship immediately after supper and breakfast. So,
and buffalo is better than cow. I have grown up on buffalo all my life. I'll take that over a cow any day.
And she seems to have fallen in love with bison meat.
Yeah.
Absolutely loves it.
It's so much better. It's richer, it's fattier. I mean, everything about it's much better. And these poor cows that they're truncing along these trails, they're constantly exercising, they're constantly moving with them. So that meat that they use is actually going to be rather tough compared to buffaloes who just kind of wander.
Yeah.
So you have much, much more tender meat. So yeah, I'd be right with her. But the milk thing's interesting because, of course, if you have milk, I assume you have butter, or at least the ability to make butter. So even if you didn't have the flour, you could have the butter and you could have the milk as long as you still had your cows, your dairy cows. So yeah.
Yeah.
And of course you could, I don't think they did this obviously, but you could use the calves because of course you need to kill the calves to keep the milk cows milking. And they would use, of course they'd use it for the meat, but then the calf's lining of the stomach has a chemical called renin in it, and that's what they use to make cheese. So yeah, I'm sorry I'm giving you guys a freaky dairy explanation. We still do this, by the way. We still kill our calves to get the milk, to get the renin, to get the cheese. So it's just how it works. But you had all that. So dairy cows were extraordinarily useful out here. And I didn't really know that. I didn't know there to be many.
And these guys are going in 1836, so they're among the first going out there. So it's probably part experiment too. Can the cows actually make it out there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Noon. The face of the country today has been like that of yesterday. They're definitely on the prairie. We are now about 30 miles above the forks and leaving the bluffs for the river. We have seen wonders this forenoon. Herds of buffalo hove in sight. One, a bull, crossed our trail and ran up the bluffs near the rear of the camp. We took the trouble to chase him so as to have a near view. Sister Spaulding and myself got out of the wagon and ran up to the bluff to see him. This band was quite willing to gratify our curiosity, seeing it was the first. Several have been killed this forenoon. The company keep a man out at all time to hunt for the camp. Okay.
Which is normal.
Yeah.
Everybody
normal.
had to do that. You always had to have out scouts, probably not just for hunting, but of course to see large parties of natives or treacherous like rivers, mountains, storms coming.
Edward, if I write much more in this way, I do not know as you can read it without great difficulty. I could tell you much more, but as we are all ready to move again, so farewell for the present. I wish you were all here with us, going to the dear Indians. So she's looking forward to, she's thinking of them as dear people at this point in time. DEAR. So thinking fondly of them.
Not literally deer people.
Yeah.
With antlers.
I have become very much attached to Richard Sakatua, T is the one you saw at our wedding. He calls me mother. I love to teach him, to take care of him, and to hear them talk. So there was, this was another rabbit hole I went down on how you correctly pronounce Nez Perce, the tribe, Nez Perce, and that's how they pronounce it, because it's a French word. The French gave the name to them. That's how I was taught in New York. You're supposed to call it. But I did go and do some research just on this little tiny bit with the Nez Perce, and even the tribe call themselves Nez Perce.
Nez Perce. Well, and they're not the only ones that were named by French and that stuff.
Yeah. So this all started because a couple of Nez Perce came back to New York with some white folks. And that's kind of how they were like, yeah, you need God out there, blah, 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 blah. That's how it all started. So one of them, I believe, went back with them.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
This happened a lot.
And then they joined up with the fur company, and there were more Nez Perce with the company. So there are 5 Nez Perces in the company, and when they are together, they chatter finely. Samuel Timoni, the oldest one, has just come into the camp with the skin and some of the meat of a buffalo which he has killed himself. He started this forenoon on his own accord. It is what they like dearly to hunt buffalo. So long as we have him with us, we shall be supplied with meat. I've read that paragraph like 5 times, and I keep wanting to change it more to modern English, and my brain keeps trying to do that when I read. But, so I'm guessing most of the hunters were probably Nez Perce with them. I mean, that just kind of makes sense.
I believe Sacagawea wasn't Nez Perce, but I thought Lewis and Clark did take some Nez Perce with them when they went out. Or was Sacagawea Nez Perce?
I don't remember if she was or not, but given the way that they went, they had to have run into the Nez Perce.
Sure. And probably would have taken them as scouts at least halfway.
Yeah, and admittedly, I don't know a lot about Lewis and Clark because I didn't grow up here, so I didn't learn about them. And then when I thought about learning a little bit more, I was living in Lincoln, and I worked with a guy that was just a complete jerk, and I associated them with him because he loved Lewis and Clark. And for the longest time, I just didn't want to know anything about Lewis and Clark because it reminded me of this jerk. And so I ended up with a big gap in my American history knowledge because of it. So
that was in 4th grade. We have those end of the year essays.
Mm-hmm.
I had to do it in 4th grade. I think I had to do it again in 8th grade, and then sometime in high school, and it all ended up being Lewis and Clark. So I know quite a bit about it, but I didn't remember what tribe Sacagawea was from.
Yeah, I don't remember either. Where were we? Oh, down on the bottom of the page. I am now writing backwards. Wait, why did she write that? I don't know. Sorry, folks, forgot to turn my phone off. Monday morning, I begun to say something here that I could not finish. Now the man from the mountains has come who will take this to the office. I have commenced one to Sister Hall, which I should like to send this time if I could finish it. We have just met him, and we have stopped our wagons to ride a little. Give my love to all. I have not told you half of what I want to. We are all in health this morning and make rapid progress in our journey. By the 4th of July, our captain intends to be at the place where Mr. Parker and husband parted last fall. We are a month earlier passing here than they were last spring. Husband has begun a letter to Pa and Ma, and since he has cut his finger, so it troubles him to write to the rest. As this is done in a hurry, I don't know if you can read it. Tell Mother that if I had looked the world over, I could not have found one more careful and better qualified to transport a female such a distance. Husband says, stop.
And to that, when she says that, for a lot of our viewers who are probably a little bit younger, I'm sure you still know that things were written in cursive back then, but we don't teach cursive anymore. So the faster you write in cursive, you're either really good or you're really bad. I'm really bad. The faster my cursive is, it becomes squiggly lines. So I think that's why she said She's writing fast. It's like, I hope you can read this.
And in some of the other things I was reading and researching, because they were hooked up with the fur company folks, they did have some stops along the way, so she could finish her letter, give it to somebody, and someone heading back east.
Because they obviously made it back east somehow.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So it was probably a fur trading outpost somewhere that they left, and then someone along the line came and took it.
And this is quite amazing. So they're in our part of the world right now from New York. And as far as I've read so far, no serious casualties, no deaths. Remarkable.
Yeah.
I think that's incredible.
Yeah. So I guess they knew what they were doing. I don't know.
Well,
or they got lucky.
Well, like you said, being part of that fur traders group was essential, because I think if they would have went on their own, it would have been. It would have been.
Very different. So then, on June 27th, 1836, I just pulled out a few things from. She wrote that they were on the south side of the Platte River, 6 days above the Fort Laramie Fork, near the foot of the Rocky Mountains. So she has passed through Nebraska, and she's in Wyoming now. And I didn't want to write the whole thing because it was just a boring, this is what happened today. So this is the interesting part. The next day in the morning, we met a large party of Pawnees going to the fort to receive their annuities. They seemed to be very much surprised and pleased to see white females. Many of them had never seen any before. They are a noble Indian, large athletic forms, dignified countenances, bespeaking an immortal existence within. When we had said what we wished to them, we hurried on and arrived at the Elkhorn in time to cross all of our effects. So her first impression of the Pawnees were decent. I don't like noble Indian, but I also get it. It's 1836. It's really, proper for that time.
And she really isn't meaning it in any insulting way.
Yeah.
At least it doesn't come up that way. She's really trying to say, hey, these really are, these are impressive people.
Yeah.
These are impressive people. I've never seen people like this before, and wow, are they impressive.
Yeah. And that they were impressed with her because she's a white woman. And they're like, what? What's she doing here? The next day we passed all their villages. We especially were visited by them at noon and at night. We ladies were such a curiosity to them. They would come and stand around our tent, peep in, and grin in their astonishment to see such looking objects.
Well, I mean, because these were the ladies of the plains, so they obviously dressed dresses very, very much were women. And I'm sure if they didn't see that before, they were probably like, huh.
Yeah. On the way to the buffalo country, we had to bake bread for 10 persons. Oh, I already read this bit. Oh, this is a more detailed bit. She's writing another letter to someone else. It was difficult because they didn't understand how to do it. June found us ready to receive our first taste of buffalo. This was the main bit that I wanted to get. Since that time, I have had but little to do with cooking. So they get buffalo, and her husband's just like, no, man, I'm the only one that knows how to cook this right. So she doesn't have to cook because all they're eating is buffalo.
Interesting.
Not one in our number relishes buffalo meat as well as my husband and I. He has a different way for cooking every piece of meat. I believe Mother Loomis would give up to him if she were here. We have had no bread since. We have meat and tea in the morn and tea and meat at noon. All our varieties consist of the different ways of cooking. I relish it well, and it agrees with me. My health is excellent. So long as I have buffalo meat, I do not wish anything else. Sister Spaulding is affected by it considerably, has been quite sick.
Interesting.
It's interesting that she got sick eating buffalo meat, but Whitman's, they're all like, no, we're going to eat it. And her husband is just like, nope, you can't cook anymore. I'm the only one that knows how to cook it, and I know how to cook each piece of it.
But living off of buffalo meat and buffalo meat alone will have consequences even on the healthiest person. I mean, you can't just eat meat and meat only for long periods of time.
And I couldn't piece together how long they ate it. But if they're eating it for breakfast and lunch every day.
If you do it for even 2 weeks, you're probably going to start
Yeah.
I would think you're feeling a little ugh.
Yeah. So maybe that's why it affected Eliza Spaulding, and just it didn't for Narcissa for whatever reason. She just absolutely loved it. Didn't get sick of it.
And I hope people don't think that the Native Americans around here only ate buffalo.
Yeah,
Come
they
on,
ate a
guys.
variety of things.
They knew the land very well.
Yep.
They hunted, they fished, they knew all the plants, what to eat, the berries, harvest seasons. They even had rice out here, believe it or not. So just so we're clear.
Yeah. And you can't live just on red meat.
You cannot.
Even
No,
if
you
bison
cannot.
is healthier than cattle, you still can't live off of it.
No, absolutely not.
Now, Sister Julia, between you and me, I just want to tell you how much trouble I have had with Marcus 2 or 3 weeks past. So, Marcus is her husband. He was under the impression that we had too much baggage and could not think of anything so easy to be dispensed with as his own wearing apparel. Those shirts the ladies made him just before he left home, his black suit and overcoat, these were the condemned articles. Sorry, I just found that hilarious that he's like, we're halfway across the country. They ain't going to know that I chucked these clothes out.
Yeah.
Sell them he must as soon as he gets to the fort. But first, I would not believe him in earnest. All the reasons I could bring were of no avail. He still said he must get rid of them. I told him to sell all of mine too. I could do without them better than he could. Indeed, I did not wish to dress unless he could. So it's looking like it's some finer clothing.
Yeah, I imagine that doing this day after day, they were pretty dressed down.
Yeah.
As far as you could and still be modest.
And
at
they
the
had
time.
probably packed that for when they got to their destination. But
It sounds like it was a church clothes.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like. It sounds like it was their church clothes.
And the entire trail is
Go again.
littered with things people chucked out along the way because it was too heavy. I finally said that I would write and get Sister Julia to plead for me, for I knew you would not like to have him sell them better than I should. This was enough. He knew it would not do to act contrary to her wishes and said no more about it. So he basically said, I'm going to tell my sister that the clothes she got you and that the ladies got you before you left, that you're going to chuck them. And so he was all right, I won't get rid of it. Didn't want to get yelled at by the ladies halfway across the country who...
In a scandalizing note.
Yeah. As soon as I alighted from my horse, I was met by a company of matrons, native women, one after another, shaking hands and saluting me with a most hearty kiss. I just want to say I love the word alighted, and we don't use it often enough.
No, we did not. That's a good one.
It is.
Word of the days.
Yeah.
Good ones.
This was unexpected and affected me very much. I can imagine that. You're just trying to get off your dang horse and you got all these people pawing at you because you're a white woman and they've never seen you before. I get it. I'd be kind of stressed out too. I'd be like, don't touch me. They gave Sister Spaulding the same situation. After we had been seated a while in the midst of the gazing throng, one of the chiefs, whom we had seen before, came with his wife and very politely introduced her to us. They say they all like us very much, and thank God that they have seen us and that we have come to live with them. It's probably what I would have done too. Stop touching me, but then after you get to sit and hang out and chat and talk to people, it turns out to be a good day.
Yeah, and this was before, like you said, this was the very beginning of the trails, so the wars haven't happened yet. Of course, I mean, the wars out east happened, all those wars, but a lot of the wars that come later, with the Lakota especially, haven't quite happened yet.
Yeah.
So...
And I remember reading in several of the Lakota accounts, they were aware of people coming through even at this time. So they were probably aware of these folks, but they were just like, man, just a few people. And they're not staying, so...
And they didn't have the treaties to, yet, right?
Yeah.
They didn't have any treaties yet
Yeah.
to make sure that they weren't supposed to come in at all. Because when the treaties were eventually signed, the idea was you weren't allowed to come into this territory anymore. We did,
Yeah.
but we weren't supposed to.
Yeah. And then we negotiated, we're just going to go through on the trails.
Yeah.
And then, oh, no, we want this bit and we want this.
Yeah.
We all know how that ended up. On August 27th, 1836, she wrote a letter to her family near the Snake River west of Fort Hall. And the Snake River, I believe, is in Idaho. So she's getting close to her destination. Girls, how do you think we manage to rest ourselves every noon, having no house to shelter us from the scorching heat or sofa on which to recline? Perhaps you think we always encamp in the shade of some thick wood. Such a sight I have not seen, lo, these many weeks. That's most of your trip. Once you hit Nebraska, you're not going to find thick woods for a good long while.
Not until you get closer to Oregon.
Yeah.
Because then, of course, you'll get to the redwoods and then and all that stuff, yeah.
December 8th. Received, so I put this because I just love the language that she uses. December 8th. Received intelligence that husband was coming tomorrow to remove our effects and myself to our new home. It is an agreeable thought to be so near a fixed location after journeying for so long. So once they got there, they then had to build their house they were going to live in.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming December 9th, 1836 was when they moved into their new house.
And Oregon, the state of Oregon, so the Oregon Territory, when people are moving in here, I think a lot of people, even when I was a kid, I really thought that Oregon Territory was just Portland. And everybody was going to Portland. Like, that's what I thought. Like it was Salt Lake City. Portland was the Salt Lake City of Oregon. Like, everyone's going to Portland. Obviously, that's not true. Yeah. They settled the entire territory all over the place. There's many, many towns, just like any state. But yeah, that was my impression. I really thought everyone was going to Portland to the coast.
And so they were in Oregon Territory, but they were just over the border in Washington from Idaho, present day is. So again, you're still far. They were well into Oregon Territory, but way on the eastern end of what
ocean.
would, yeah. I don't even know if she ever made it to the ocean. I didn't look far enough because I didn't want to do 5 hours on Narcissa Whitman, mainly because she just passed through here, but I found her journal entries pretty interesting of what she experienced coming through here.
She's definitely not living up to her name.
No.
I don't see a lot of narcissism in this.
No.
She seems pretty sincere.
Yeah. So once in Oregon Territory, they established a mission among the Cayuse Indians. Their mission became a major stopping point on the Oregon Trail. So that's another reason why it's important to remember her and her husband, where they set up their mission. Because, you stop to see them before you make your final push all the way over to the coast. Narcissa worked as a school teacher while also as a missionary. Her husband was the doctor that was there, and he was also a missionary. She had a daughter, Alice, who drowned in the Walla Walla River at age 2.
Oh, that's tragic.
Yeah. And the account that I read was she literally just looked away for like a minute or two, and her daughter fell into the river and drowned.
That's all it takes.
Yeah. So Narcissa got depressed, and she didn't have any of her friends and family to support her. So she was super, super bummed out, kind of became introverted, didn't really hang with anybody. And then all I could find was the 7 Sager orphans were placed in her care in 1844. So there were 7 children. Somehow their parents got killed.
Wow, 7.
Yeah. And so they got put into her care. She helped to raise them for a few years. And the accounts of the children later on in life, they liked her. They thought she was a disciplinarian, but that she was fair, and that they really enjoyed their few years that they had with her.
She seems kind of like almost like a Mary Poppins kind of character. Very cool, but also very like, you don't do this.
Yeah. And there was a bit that I was reading as well about her that I didn't put in here, where she would comment that she didn't like that the Cayuse would just come into her house and sit down and take food and eat. That was a Cayuse tradition. That was part of their culture.
Sure, absolutely.
And so they didn't think really anything of it. And then she did mention in a letter, I think to her sister, where she called them dirty, and that every time they did this and left, she had to clean the house. I don't know. Were they dirty? Were they not? Did they just have like dirt on their shoes and come in the house and drag mud around?
Yeah, I think dirty is just more of a just term that you just have a bunch of people in general just show up at your house and eat and leave, assuming don't even do dishes.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Like, that would be dirty to me.
Yeah. So I think that's more what she was going for. And I didn't want to get into it too much. That was really like the only negative thing that I could even find about her. And I'm not even sure it's negative. Because I get ticked here when my husband doesn't clean up after himself in the kitchen. And he's being dirty. So that's probably what she was complaining about too.
Yeah, and don't get us wrong, folks. We're not trying to say that she did not have what would I call the prejudices of the time. Mm-hmm. She definitely did.
Yeah.
Everybody did. We worked through that our entire lives, even now. But so she probably said things that were very uncouth in nowadays time. Yeah. So take it with a bit of salt. Yeah. But at least she wasn't, there's no downright animosity or wanting, or I guess these are the people that want to convert, not destroy or kick out. Yeah. I'm not saying one's better than the other, folks, because in my opinion it is not. But yeah. Yeah. So, the Cayuse had lived in this area for thousands of years. Their life began to rapidly change with these throngs of missionaries and other Americans coming in and just taking over the land. So naturally, with the white people, strife and disease arrived as well. There were regular struggles with the Cayuse and the Nez Perce. They were suspicious of the Americans who had encroached on their ancestral lands. And I've read, we'll get to it in a minute. There's two different accounts of something that's about to happen. So the Cayuse leader, and I'm going to try and pronounce this, Telukaikt, began working to oust them from his land in 1841. So they arrive late 1836, and by 5 years later, he's just like, yeah, no, y'all need to leave. This is our land. And so tensions steadily get worse. When a measles epidemic struck in 1847, that unease between the missionaries and the Cayuse grew. I really hope people don't hear my stomach growling, because I can hear it through my headphones. It's almost lunchtime today, folks. Almost lunchtime.
So the Americans had limited immunity to measles, and the Cayuse didn't, and many of their children died. The Cayuse, so this is where there's two stories. The Cayuse, one of the stories says the Cayuse felt like Marcus was only curing white folks and only white children, and was purposely letting the Indian children die.
Which, do we know if that's true or not?
I don't think, I think it comes down to the immunity.
The natural, because we didn't have any vaccinations for measles yet. We did for smallpox, though.
Yeah, but not for measles. But because, let's say, you were a little kid in 1825 and had measles, and then in 1840 you have a kid, that immunity is going to pass down. It's not going to be 100%, but you'll have more. But these guys have never been exposed to it.
Yeah, there's no natural or generational immunity.
So I don't think that was the case. I mean, I would like to believe that Marcus, he's there to be a missionary and he's a doctor, that he wants to help save people.
Sure. And of course, you can only do so much. There's only one guy. So.
Yeah. So the other story, Telukaikt, I know I'm saying his name wrong, he had said that in their culture, if your medicine man cannot save people, they need to be removed.
Interesting. That kind of makes sense, though.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not a good doctor if
Yeah.
you're not doctoring people up.
Yeah,
You know?
and that did not happen, and he didn't think that that was fair either.
Sure.
What I had read on that, it seemed to imply that Tolukaik, I'm saying it wrong, I'm sorry. It seemed like he was trying to be practical, saying if you can't do it, get somebody that can.
Yeah. Well, it
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, it absolutely makes sense.
All of this came to a head on November 29th, 1847. Tolukaik and other Cayuse attacked the mission. Narcissa and Marcus and John and Francis Sager, two of the little boys that they had taken in, were among 13 people killed in what would become known as the Whitman Massacre. So for the next 2 years, 500 volunteer soldiers chased the Cayuse everywhere. Eventually, they gave up. They got tired of running. And 5 Cayuse, they were named Clocomas, Isaiah Lucas, Kia Masumkin, Telikite, and Tamahas were turned over and hanged for their roles in the massacre.
This is very common in massacre history, by the way. Brigham Young will do something very similar later. I believe it was not the Sand Creek Massacre, it was the Battle Creek Massacre. Similar thing. A couple cows got killed. Then 2 of the locals ended up being on the stick for it. So that had more to do with the U.S. soldiers. Brigham Young was involved in that. I guess he sent out people to go see what was going on, but he wasn't as directly involved as Battle Creek. Creek, he actually gave commands to go find these 2 that tried to kill the cows, or did kill cows.
Yeah. So the accounts that I've read, these 5 Cayuse that were turned over probably didn't have anything to do with the attack.
No, they're scapegoats.
Yeah. And just before one of them, so the National Park Service has the documentation. Before hanging, the one named Tamahas is reported to have said, "Much like your Savior Jesus Christ gave himself for you, we are giving ourselves up for our people in order to stop the Cayuse War." So, I mean, damn. Yeah, I don't want to swear, but
I was like, damn, dude, that's like,
yeah,
take that.
I mean, and on top of that, you're not guilty. You had nothing to do with this, but to save your entire people, he's like Spock, man.
Yeah, totally. Oh, that was really sad.
Yeah.
A little choked up there.
Yeah, man, more power to you, Tamahas, because I admire you for that. So, according to an article on mynorthwest.com, Narcissa is remembered for several firsts. She was one of the first 2 white women to cross the continent overland, and she had the first child born of American parents in the Oregon country. It was her journey that proved it was possible for women to cross the country on foot, opening the way for the next several generations of immigrants who journeyed down the Oregon Trail. Her letters were published and widely read, and I would recommend you take some time to learn some more about her. She is really interesting and sometimes a contradiction to herself, but when are we not? Because I
was definitely not a narcissist.
Yes. And if you're a member of our Patreon, I'll paste in all the links where I did the research.
Oh my goodness.
And I only read a small portion of her journals and her letters. I mean, there's lots and lots of them, but I just kind of tried to focus from where I thought she was getting into Nebraska to just after she had passed through.
Sure.
But she's important. She stopped there at the Ancient Bluffs ruins, and there's a little historical marker to her there. It's an amazing story because she did things people didn't think she was capable of, and it's a window into our past and what people thought, and how the tensions rose. And I could see in some of the things that I was reading, I'm like, yeah, that's a misunderstanding of cultures.
Oh, definitely. That was the whole problem, was a misunderstanding of cultures.
Yeah.
Throughout the world.
Yes. And it still continues to this day.
Absolutely.
Is that the cat? Oh my God, that's my cat yanking on the little lever that puts your chair up and down.
He's like, it's time.
Thanks,
It's
Londo.
time to go, Mom. We're done. We're done for the day. Londo, come on.
Londo,
buddy.
stop. You know, this is what happened many, many times coming out here with all the different tribes. We had decided that we were better, and so the tribes had to conform to us.
Yeah.
And you don't need to ever anywhere. I love learning about different cultures, and there's certain things that some folks do. Like I used to, the big one on Reddit is people freaking out that Americans walk in the house with their shoes on because you track dirt all over the house. And I had learned that when I was in college back in the early 90s. And when I went to the Netherlands, all of my friends, they took their shoes off as soon as they got in the house. And I started thinking about it, and I'm like, yeah, because I have to clean up whatever I track in the house, and I don't want to do that.
And I'll admit, I'm a filthy American. I wear my shoes in the house. I don't have carpet though. That's a big thing. I have
That's
hardwood
different. It's
floors,
easier
so
to
it's a lot of
clean.
Cleaning.
Yeah.
But I still should be taking it off. I need to get better in that practice.
And so in that sense, that is someone else's culture. It's not really an American culture thing because everybody does it differently. And it's something I thought was a good idea, so I adapted. All this noise you hear, guys, Londo is climbing up on me, up on the desk, back down off me, up on the desk.
Clearly done for the day.
Yeah. He usually, I don't know what time it is, but I think it's near his feeding time. So he is politely telling me he's hungry. So I will go feed him. I hope you all enjoyed learning about Narcissa Whitman.
I certainly did. That was a really good story.
Awesome.
I loved it.
And we'll be back next week with another story. I'm Irene.
I'm Connor.
And this is Storytelling on the Plains.